another episode of Blocc Talk with Chris and Smoke. I'm Smoke. We got Chris. So, Chris, I want to let you introduce our special guest today.
And our special guest is Santiago.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, Santiago is my alias name, my nickname, so to speak. My real name is Brian. I go by either one. I'm not really uptight, but obviously I grew up as Brian. So Santiago is actually my exotic dancer name that I chose over 12 years ago. And I haven't really given a background on it, so I think it's a perfect opportunity to talk about why I chose the name Santiago. So when I applied to become a male exotic dancer now 13 years ago, being that it's past February, the manager said, I need you to choose a very creative name, nothing tacky. So I was very new at this, so I figured what could I possibly think of? But before I chose Santiago, I said, how about something like Sancho? And so the guy was like, no, be a little better than that. You know, Sancho is kind of like, be more elegant, be something more exotic. And I don't know why, but my favorite vampire movie is Interview with the Vampire. And for some random reason, I remember Antonio Banderas' character, one of his henchmen, was this vampire named Santiago. And I remember it like clicked to me. He's like, Santiago. And I just the sound of it, I thought that's pretty intriguing, you know, Santiago, something foreign, something exotic, something, it hit me. So I remember I said, okay, not Sancho, but how about Santiago? And he thought, he was like, that's brilliant. That's unique. Santiago. So ever since then, that's where the name derived from. And a lot of people don't know that, but this is the chance to talk about why I chose the name Santiago, and it stuck with me. A lot of people like it for me. So I want to emphasize and talk about the angle, my representation of what I am and the type of entertainer. So I want to be involved in everything exotic reptiles, which is what I'm really, really into,
right.
Exotic dancing. So anything that's involved in the realm of exotics. Exotics has to do with something that's extraordinary or above the domesticated or above the average. You know, you have domesticated pets as dogs and cats. I'm a big owner of reptiles. I have a large collection of snakes, and I also have a monitor lizard that's called a black dragon. And being a child, that's been my favorite group of animals, particularly snakes. So yeah.
So what got you into being an exotic dancer?
That's a very interesting question. And to give the backstory to that, this is a very funny story. Believe it or not, I had an ex-girlfriend at the time. We used to go out clubbing, right? So a lot of people out there, when they, make their money, they unwind, they relieve stress by going to clubs, dancing, drinking. A lot of people do that. The average young person does that, right? Mm-hmm. So me and my ex-girlfriend used to go out clubbing a lot. And when I would dance and I'd have a few drinks and just like sway my hips and everything, she used to joke around and saying, you could be an exotic dancer or stripper. Because sometimes by the end of the night, I would have my shirt off. I've always liked working out. So I've always been athletic. And, she used to joke and encourage it. She's like, you would make a good dancer. And I used to think she was kidding. So one day I was at the gym and I ran into an old high school buddy of mine. And I talked about this in another podcast, and he approached, I didn't recognize him. And he was like a rags to riches story. He was a chubby dude, and he became this chiseled, muscular guy who was a model and happened to be an exotic dancer. Growing up, I was a very timid guy. I was really shy, and I thought I had always been under the impression that male exotic dancers had to get naked, and it's not true. So the guy clarified that. He's like, no, you strip down your underwear, and if they want a little extra something, there's like a tailored underwear called like a male G-string that you take to a tailor, and that's it. You don't have to do all that. Nobody said. And I was like, oh, okay. So he explained it to me in detail, and so I told my ex-girlfriend at the time about my friend, and then she tells me, instead of being one of those girls that are self-conscious, that are against the idea, she goes, why don't you try out and be a dancer? And I was like, for real? She's like, yeah, just see if you have what it takes to be one, and make that money, and at that time, because she worked a part-time job and she always wanted me to buy her things. So I kind of thought, well, maybe that's her ulterior motive,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
because she knows that maybe dancers make good money. Before I got into that, my other side hustle used to be bartender. I was a bartender for some time, and that makes money. But back in those days, bartending does not compare to being a male dancer. Male dancers still make a little bit more when you're established, though.
Right.
So that's the whole story about that. So I applied. The guy, I hit him up because I got his number, my old high school buddy, and I said, hey, I want to try out. Can you lead me? He just like led the way. Take some few professional pictures, and I have the manager, and then you send an email, and then if he gives you the okay, if he likes what he sees, you come up with a name. And so that's how I kind of gave the introduction to my name. And then he sent me out with the seasoned veteran. It's kind of like when a cop takes you on a ride along, if you want to get that done. It's similar to that. He goes, you're gonna go and you're gonna meet up with this guy, and you're gonna be a part of his shows, so you're gonna follow his lead. If you feel that you have what it takes, ask him any questions, and see if you can take it from there. So I met this guy. Shout out to Passion Marcelo, who's my friend to this day, and he's still an active dancer. We exchange stories. I remember when I met him, he was very cool and mellow. He's like, yeah, just go with it. If the girls want you to dance, if you feel that you're up to it, go. And I remember that night they said, be cleanly groomed, shave, wear some cologne, wear like a fitted shirt and some nice jeans, and then just like a nice underwear, like Calvin Klein or whatever it is. Wear some nice underwear, in case you strip down to your underwear, if it gets down to that. So I did just that. And I remember that night, I was nervous and I was following his lead. And a lot of times women, I think they're drawn to innocence of people, because I remember these girls were drinking. They were into the guy, but they stopped and they focused their attention on me. They're like, what about him? And the guy was like, if you feel you can, go in there, give the girl a lap dance. And blindly I went in there. I remember, I'll never forget, even the song, Eminem, Tap That. It was that song that I stripped to. And for those few minutes, I made $13 in tips in a few minutes. And I was like, oh my God, I just took my shirt off. I got into it like I thought. And the guy was like, no, you keep your tips. And I remember that night, and he wasn't offended because he's done this a long time. When people are drunk, they say things that they don't necessarily mean to say.
Right.
But they kept wanting me to dance, and they were like, no, we don't want him. Like, they were being rude to him. And I was like, oh my gosh. And he's like, no, it's okay. And I went ahead and I danced another song, and I made like 20 something bucks. And then I let him do the rest of his show, because I wanted to learn how he conducts the show throughout the hour. That night, there were 2 events. So after that night was over, I followed him to the next one. So the next one, it was mostly him. But I remember that night how easy it was. And then when I drove home that night, I told the same story to my then ex-girlfriend. And she was like, oh my God, so you have the potential. And then on another podcast that I appeared on, I talked about my first night alone and how I thought I blew it. I was late, and I was like, oh, this is a disaster. I was just like, I'm going to blow this. Back then, there were flip phones, and there was no GPS. So I had to like literally write down the directions, and like one of the directions was off. They were calling me, you're late. It was a 2-man show. And the manager called me. He's like, bro, what's going on? And I was like, oh, you just go. Are you nearby? And I was nearby. And there was a gap of time from the first party to the second party. So after my first show, even the other guy was like, it's okay. It happens to us all. I was a nervous wreck. Yeah. Because I got there late. But the girls were happy when they saw me. And then it was a 30 minutes each. So I did my show. And then back to normal. No piece of cake, the second party. And I remember too, and not many people know this, but the second show that I worked that night was like a traditional Mexican family of women, like 3 generations down. There was an elderly woman that I remember. She was the sweetest lady. And I remember when I danced, and I did my show by myself. It went really well. nothing too out of control. It was a pretty mild and decent show, you could say. I made my money. They were very thankful. I remember before I left, this old lady, probably 80 something, stops me and she says the sweetest thing to me. She gives me a Catholic blessing. She goes, "Ay, mijo tan bonito, que Dios lo bendiga." And it was something I felt. It was just like, that was a sweet, I did not expect that. It was the sweetest thing. And I had a good feeling about it. I was like, wow, dude, who would have thought, you know?
Well, you even danced at what was it, a hospice, I want to say?
Oh, yes. So
Now that
is
has to be
something
hard.
extreme. So the hospice incident, terminally ill. I mean, so once again, and what you're referring to was my big soft white underbelly interview.
Yeah.
And I think in order to come into that channel, you have to really get the man's attention. Keep in mind, it's a gigantic channel, over
Right.
6 million subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to be, don't just be another stripper story. Just don't be cliche.
Right.
I knew right away that I was going to come out in that. I just knew it. I was like, for sure, I have to be on that channel because, and not to boast or brag, but the things that I've seen and been through, it's like something out of a movie. Like
Right.
literally out of I'm not making this stuff up.
Yeah.
I'm not fabricating it. I didn't make that story up. So the hospice story, so it was a 2-man show and a guy went before me. And mind you, this was a seasoned veteran. This guy had been around longer than me and he cut the show short. So I thought that's pretty
Weird.
odd, why he left. I was driving there thinking that it's a quote unquote mother's birthday party. The poor young lady did not know how to describe her mother's terminally ill wish,
Right.
which is to have 2 strippers before she left. I don't know if it was out of dark humor, whatever it was, but that was just something else.
Yeah.
I was not prepared for that, And in these things, I always say, the very exciting thing about my job every weekend, you never know what you walk into. You must always have your A game on, be headstrong, and just try to make the best out of it. Because in this line of work, you make more money than the average person doing their 9 to 5, which I also work too. I understand the struggle with that.
Right.
I work a warehouse job. I hate getting up early. I hate being in traffic. I hate all of that. I'm in that side of the fence too.
Yeah.
This is an easy job because you make fast money,
Right.
And so I always keep that in mind. That's why I have that humble sense in me, because I appreciate what it takes to make easy money like that in short time. Anyways, before I digress, so I'm here thinking, okay, did the guy get there early? Why is he leaving so soon? He I'm like running just barely on time to make it, and the guy calls me up because he tells me, "Oh, I left," and it was only 30 minutes into it, and I'm like, I didn't bother to ask him, but I was
Why?
compelled to. I was like, maybe he's in a hurry to get to his next show and it's far away. And this guy had been around longer than me. And I get there, the daughter greets me, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, I'm sorry if I kept you." And she goes, "No, you're fine. So I get my stuff. I'm in there, like ready to start my thing. And she's explaining to me, she's telling me, she goes, "I know I hired 2 dancers for my mother's birthday party, but I didn't know how to describe it. But the truth is that my mother's terminally ill. She has cancer. And she only has a few weeks to live." And I just got hit with that. I was like, oh. So she's in there. She's like, yeah, her hospice bed is in there. And, just that was her wish. So instead of being shaken by it, I was like, okay, let's see. And I just fed off of the group, not necessarily the guest of honor who inevitably is going to go soon. I tried not to let that stay in my head.
Had to kind of control your emotions and everything. Just try
Control your
stay
emotions
level-headed.
always. And speaking of controlling your emotions, you got to be like, because you deal with drunk people who are rude. And to any stripper out there or any exotic dancer, they understand this. When people are inebriated, they can be very rude, and you have to try and be professional because you're there to do a job still. So that's the bottom line. You're there to do your job and to try to make the best out of the situation, especially in this emotional case,
Right.
So I walk in there, and to make it even worse, I see this pale woman with glasses smoking a cigarette, just studying me. How nerve-wracking is that? You're walking in there.
That wasn't the hospice lady.
That was a hospice lady.
Oh, that was her?
That was her.
Oh, wow.
But I walk in there and, as if the news that I received wasn't bad enough.
Yeah.
Right.
She's just there staring at me with this cold, emotionless expression. And I'm in there jolly and just like, hey, ladies, how's everyone? Try not to let that distract me.
Yeah.
You have to be headstrong. And these poor women, the daughters and granddaughters and the nieces of this lady, they were happy. So I fed off of that energy to keep me going because they were happy. It's like little children seeing Santa Claus or something. They were like, hey, like a stripper.
Yeah.
So I go in there, set everything up. How you doing? And I look at the lady and I'm like, how you doing, ma'am? She didn't say a word to me. She was just smoking and just watching me set up my stuff.
You think that maybe she's like, oh, I seen better?
It could be. But the fact that she was not responding to me as much was very intimidating, but I did not let it shake me. So I put one of my favorite songs on, and I don't remember, but usually a good tip is start out with a good introduction song that's gonna get you going and set the mood for the rest of the evening, that that you're gonna just let loose and just get into, because that rubs off. People see that. You're being watched. You're like a live movie in front of an audience. So that you can't let that make you nervous at all, because all these eyes are watching you. And you got to play it off with such confidence. And I always tell people there's a big difference from being cocky and confident. Cocky guys are serious and like, but confidence is like, address everyone. Make sure that everyone's doing good. There's a big, big, big difference between the two. Right. And I've done this long enough to know the difference between that, so I did the show, going back to that, and it turned out well. I managed to stay the whole hour. I made my money. They were pleased. And I don't want to compare myself to the other one, but the fact that he stayed half the time and I stayed the whole time would kind of, pretty much speak for itself.
Right.
So this poor daughter, she walks me out, to my car and everything. And then, what do I say to her? I had 2 more shows after that. Oh, yeah. So after saying bye to this girl who's about to lose her mother, like what could I possibly say? And it was just her saying, thank you so much. That was so great. It like surpassed our expectations. But for this girl to tell me that, I was like, well, I hope I did my job and I hope it was everything you guys imagined. I felt bad, but I don't know what else to say to her, but just thank you. And, that was it. And when I left, I drove, I tried to put music and not think about that, because you have to keep your spirits up for the other events, which were regular shows to your typical bachelorette or birthday party, whatever it is, So that story was very hard. Another story to the interview, again, and I talk about some of the, personal specs of what it is to be a dancer. So when I started this business, when I say ex-girlfriend, within the year, we inevitably just split up. We went our separate ways. I continued being a dancer, and respectfully so. There's no bitterness. And it's
was it because of the?
No, it wasn't because. Being a stripper? No, and I don't want to talk bad, but she didn't want to, pick herself up financially. It's like I was supporting her. Okay. She moved in from her parents to my apartment and was just like slacking her. She didn't even clean my place. I'm like, I worked.
Kind of leeching off of you a little bit.
She was. Yeah. And I don't want to say that because, again, I don't have any ill will feelings to her. I wish her well. Right. And that was it. We had a pretty clean breakup. Yeah. It was mutual and it was respectful. We just went our separate ways. And she feels the same way. So that was it. But I just got tired of it and I had no support, and going to the gym, and mind you, I was working a graveyard warehouse job. So I was barely sleeping, and for her not to even help me, and put her part in, it's like there's no future in this. I'm sorry, but she didn't understand that. And that was it.
Do you think that as time went on, was there any like issues with any relationships because of you being an exotic dancer?
Well,
because a lot of girls are insecure.
They're and it is true. Now, a stigma a stigma of having that job. And I will tell you, I throw everything on the table. There's nothing, because I learned a long time ago, don't hide things. Don't keep things, because they will come out. Your skeletons will come out. Yeah. So anytime I meet a new girl, whether it be, well, not after shows, but like I've met a few girls, gone out, and it didn't work out. But for the ones that have met me outside, like say at the gym or at the market. In fact, there was an incident where I met a girl at the gym at the time, many years ago, that I was really interested in. And she thought I just worked my graveyard shift job, because I would go there late at night before work, and she was there too. And, you know, just to cut it short, we exchanged numbers and we were going to hang out. And before I was getting closer, I had to tell her that what I did on the weekends, I go, hey, by the way, and I think it discouraged her. She just, I don't want to say that she's judgmental, but that kind of like really discouraged her. And I really, really wanted her to get to know me, you know, the type of man that I am. All I wanted her to do was take her out to eat.
Right.
But after that, she kept giving me excuses, and then I got it, and I was like, okay, it was just that. Never took a chance.
Yeah, because the automatic stigma with that comes with, oh, he's a player. He's probably doing
this. He's probably banging all these women. Yeah. And
right,
no, it's not. Right. It's not like that.
I would think that after a while, it kind of gets, I don't want to say boring, but you kind of like, I can have all the women I want. I really don't care. If it's like for myself at least, I get like people hitting on me, right? And then you're kind of like, you really don't care, because you really want to be with one person, but if that one person is not giving you that attention, I guess you would say, you're kind of like, all right, well, fine, bye.
Well, not only that, but you're like a trophy. You're up there. The spotlight is on you. So there's a lot of pressure. There could be a lot of propositions being offered to you. Oh, you know, I'd give you, they probably would think, well, you know, who knows how much money they offered him to try to, and it's not like that. I don't care about that. I make my money to a limit because I have a full-time job too.
Right.
There's no need. You know, I do my part with my limitations, and I can go to sleep at night with a clean conscience. I'll just leave it at that. I don't need all that excessiveness. I've lived my single life. I've experimented. I'm not a saint, but I've done a lot of things. And even before
everybody has.
And even before this line of work, I've had a lot of sexual experiences, if I have to be blunt. And this was even before I got into the job. But the job has taught me, and I say it in a therapeutic sense, it's taught me to build more confidence, to network, and to learn a little bit more about the habits of women. You know, in the interview, Mark asked me, you know, like, what have you learned about women? And I remember going back to that interview, I kind of scrambled around because it was a giant platform. I was kind of nervous, you know, and now that I'm more laid back, it's just what I learned about women, because I was vague in that interview in the sense where, okay, well, women will test you, they're bigger testers than men, but I was kind of vague about that. So women deal with a lot. I mean, but I'm not going anything about against men. Men deal with a lot, but I think women don't get enough credit because of the shit that they have to put up with a lot of men out there. Okay, for example, a woman that's considered attractive or even average, who knows how many unnecessary, unsolicited DMs they get. That's just so annoying from guys, you know, and being relentless and knuckleheads out there not understanding and getting the point. You know, that's just one aspect. A girl can't go to the supermarket without being literally harassed sometimes, or having a rude guy. You know, women have a standoffish attitude, you know, against men, because they deal with a lot of like fuck boys,
disrespect, and
quote unquote fuck boys out there. You know, there's too many out there that ruin it, and so women become very defensive. Now, when I go in there, they don't see me as that, because they see me as this they see me as this figure, and they're like, well, he has no fuckboy vibes. I'm just there to conduct a business. That's all I care about. Women are super perceptive, and they read things well. So when they see me, they're like, okay, this guy's cool, this guy's good. I'm just there to make my business and go over like
they see how you carry yourself.
Yes, the game plan. You know, that's all I care about. And it's like, women let their guard down, and they're like, they can be comfortable because they're very like, you know, they deal with a lot on a daily.
But also too, you know, women we're not perfect for sure, you know, because I date girls as well. So, I mean, I don't know. They're starting to be like men now.
Now, yes.
I don't want to say it like that, but it's kind of like we hit another era where it's just like,
they're like, okay, so they're like, no, they're like men now in a sense where I think women are like, well, if men can do this way and be glamorized for having multiple partners, and why can't it be like that? And I don't blame women. In fact, a woman that can be honest to me and say that, you know, in her past she's done this and that, that's your past. I'm not going to judge you based off of that. I'm not going to shame you. I'm not going to slut shame you. I don't do that.
Right.
Because I'm a hypocrite, you know, for being with several people, having my experience. That's like a double standard, and it should not be like that. Women should not feel bad for what they've done in the past, but if you're going to be upfront and honest with me from that point on, if you want to be true like that, then cool.
But women can hide secrets really good.
Better than men.
Right.
I'll say this up front. And not only that, but men can't get away with certain women. I always say, and I joke around, women are the best detectives in the world.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Better than a man.
For sure.
Okay, so it's like, no, don't even try. Any player will eventually get caught. You can be the best player, but eventually your reputation will catch up on you. Because I'm sorry to say this, fellas, but women are better at the game than the men. They just are. And the way that times have changed, yeah, women are becoming more and more like that because it's becoming a standard in today's time. You know, and it's harder to find people that are ideal. Is this person really going to be with me or not? Right. Or are they in there for an ulterior motive?
Right.
And what I've learned is that the best person to be with is someone that's going to be more like your best friend. The best person to be with is going to be someone that's not going to let you fall and just leave you. When you have your struggles, when you're at your weakest, and they're going to still be there for you and pick you up, that's your keeper right there.
Right.
And even above whatever rumors, if they defend you, if they're there by your side. I can attest to that because in my current relationship, and I'm not ashamed to say it, my wife has been there. We've had our differences. I am married.
How long have you known her?
I have known her 6 years, and she did know me from the beginning.
Does she have a sister?
Huh?
Does she have a sister?
She does. But she's in El Salvador. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just messing around.
No, okay.
But that's good though. That's good. It's good that you found someone that's willing to be there for you. You know, it's really hard to find somebody.
It's very hard, and I'm still learning, and I just you know, I honestly, and I have to say this publicly, I don't credit my wife enough sometimes. We're very different. My wife has a very explosive temperament, and I'm the opposite. And she says, we're like the yin and the yang. She goes, you're the calm before the storm. And it's so true. That's why we click so well, because we're opposites. We fill each other's voids.
Yeah.
I like attention. I'm like that because growing up, I felt neglected of that. And I talk about that. I like being out there. My wife is very reclusive. She's the opposite. She doesn't like that. She's just not like that.
I think that's in a lot of relationships, because I know that for myself, I don't like attention. We may have this show, but outside of this, I don't like doing all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think everybody's a little bit different, and that's why you guys are perfect for each other.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's interesting because now moving on, so the subject of how all this basically happened, beginning of the year, we were having some separation issues and we were drifting. I'm going to admit this and say, it's like I was letting it be, and I kind of questioned, but the thing is, we lacked one thing, the communication. We never touched base with that. She was upset for one thing, and I was just like, okay, I'm not going to let you get me down, but I should have seeked the root instead of being out there. That was my mistake. Now I admit that openly. Instead of, she was just waiting for me to look for her. Women want that. Women are like, well, if you're the man, then you have to address the issue. They can't read your mind.
You're still expected to lead in the sense of
exactly
communication. You know, you're leading by let's communicate. You know what? I know we're having issues. What can we do to fix it? How do we get where we need to go?
And even when she's mad at me, sometimes she'll give me a hard time and she'll ignore me, and it makes it difficult. But still, I still come home to her, and I still should be like, okay, this is and I didn't do that. I was just floating. I was just doing my thing, and I just had that outlook like, I'm gonna be good this year, and I'm gonna flourish. I'm gonna suffice, whatever it be. And so I did something that she was really, really totally against, and I felt that I had to do this. I haven't really emphasized this enough, but it's a representation of my reptiles that I love,
Right.
and it is also a representation of in the realm of exotics. This is something that I call an extreme exotic thing that I did to myself, or an extreme exotic modification, and that is I split my tongue.
Oh,
and I
damn.
did this in December 30th, right before the beginning of the
for
year.
the year.
Yes. Ironically, it is the year of the snake in Chinese zodiac.
It is.
So I thought, what better time to do
do
this
it
than
than
now
now.
too, for many reasons. One is a representation of my reptiles that I love so much. And two, it's very exotic. It's an extreme exotic thing. It's like not ordinary, and it's pretty unheard of. So I thought it'd be a unique thing to be an exotic dancer, to have a tongue modification or a tongue split,
Right.
to have that.
Well, I'm sure that there's some girls that like that and some girls that don't. 'Cause
Yes,
there's-
and I
mean,
just, because it's still new, I'm learning that some girls are very like thrown off by it, and they don't like it. So I have to still figure out the crowds that are for it, or that are cool with it, or some that are scared by it. And I'm still learning that.
Yeah.
But if I didn't bring this up, you wouldn't really
You wouldn't
be able
know.
to
I
tell.
wouldn't
wouldn't be able to tell.
So that's the beauty of it. It's not
Right.
something that I wear on my face,
Right.
until I present it out.
Yeah.
So that's another unique thing.
That hurt.
Oh yeah. Imagine what it feels like biting your own tongue.
Yeah.
To have someone butcher your tongue. But they put anesthesia on it, but still to
okay.
inject your tongue, it was a very, very tough and horrible
What did your mom
pain.
say about that?
My mom was lost for words. She was like, I don't understand, and I don't know why, mijo, because she's very old-fashioned and traditional.
Traditional Mormon, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, because she's very conservative. My dad's not a Mormon, but he supports my wife in that. So, because when you said, well, what'd your mom think? I wasn't just gonna tell them. So my wife got so mad at me for doing it. She told my parents.
Three under the bus.
Why? Yeah, dude. So
Yeah,
I
bus.
had this awkward conversation. So that story, I got out of work. I put in my vacation time to recover from my tongue.
But you didn't do it to spite her, right?
Oh, no.
You just did it because you
No.
wanted to do it for yourself,
I
right?
told her, and she said, you better not do it. And I said, it's my body, my choice. You've done things to your body that I didn't fully support, but I still support you. Okay,
Right.
you want to do that? You want to make it, don't be a hypocrite about it. So I was upset in that sense. But because we were kind of having issues already, that was like the final straw for her. She's like, I'm not going to talk to you. She just thought, who are you? I think I felt that in the first few days. So
Well, I think that because she probably, since you guys were having issues, maybe she thought it was because.
I believe so too. And because I still did it, she's like, I can't believe it. Like, and it kind of caused more of a drift at
Right,
the time.
I would think so.
At
Yeah.
the time. But it wasn't because of that. I've always been intrigued by something like that. And I thought, again, me being the person that wants to make a statement, I wanted to do something. Maybe it was a midlife crisis, because I think back, why did I make this extreme choice at my age to do something like that? And I figured, we're all going to die one day. I want to do something that's going to leave a statement and an impression. Do something extraordinary to myself. This is pretty extraordinary. I don't know if you guys would agree.
Well, I've seen people that did things way worse having a midlife crisis. So I would take that any day.
Okay. Well, yeah. But to a lot of people, I would kind of imagine so. So there's the reasons, and that's the reasoning for that. I don't regret it at all. I love it. It's unique. And even though me and my wife are much better now, and she's very supportive. Shout out to my wife. Now she likes it.
Yeah.
You can imagine, And it's just to kind of give you an idea. Imagine what you can do with one tongue, and it's basically having two tongues. So I'll just leave it at that. But, you know, and it's like, again, very supportive. And it's like, we've had our issues, and, you know, again, I can't stress this enough. I don't credit my wife enough, and we've had our differences. We've had our doubts. And we've had a lot of odds against us because, one, we rushed into the relationship, and two, we rushed into the marriage. We were together a few months and then we got married. We weren't together that long before we got into the marriage.
But kind of like sometimes.
But you guys knew each other for a while though, right?
No.
Oh no. So this is okay.
We had known each other months. We dated. I'm telling you, it happened very fast.
Oh damn.
And it's unlike me too, you know. And a lot of people say, you know, when you rush into things, you find out later. We had the struggles, but we've managed.
Right.
Miraculously.
Well, 6 years. That's a
6 years, but the first few years were very rocky because we were still learning things that we just didn't like, and it's like,
learning each other, figuring each other out.
Yeah, but I think that comes with every relationship, regardless.
Well, okay, so it is, but here's the thing though: when you start a relationship, you don't jump in right away, because when you marry someone versus dating someone, you have your own place that you can go to.
Right.
Okay, you get into a big fight, you're gonna go home. We get into a fight, my home is your home. We're gonna sleep on the same bed with the problem, you know, versus a single person. You get into a fight, you have time to think it over, you go to sleep, they're in their own bed, whatever.
Was there any, like, say when you guys would argue in the beginning, did you guys ever not sleep with each other? Like one sleeps on the couch and one sleeps in the bed?
It's happened.
Yeah, that's like, to me, that's the biggest no-no. I don't care if I'm like mad.
Well,
like,
that's what it was then, but because our relationship and we've been through a lot now, my wife is a type of person, and you know, this is a strong point. She fights for what she loves. She's not gonna let me go. In the beginning, she got so frustrated. She literally kicked me out. It was bad. It was ugly. I didn't want it to get physical, so I had to sleep in my stepson's room. I was there, and she was alone, and that was the one time that she really did not want anything to do with me, and she did that. We slept like that in the house. And I think it happened more than once, but now, and we talked about this, she goes, no matter what, no matter how mad at you I am, and it's hard for me to do because I'm not that type of person, and she can do it. Don't turn your back on me when you go to sleep. And I go, if I'm mad at you, I'm not going to want to. She goes, no, you're going to hold me.
you'd be surprised how I think an argument can de-escalate so fast just by, you know, showing somebody that you love them regardless of the situation that you guys are in right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. See,
So
and again,
I mean, she told you.
Yes, and she's an opposite with that. She can be mad and still, you have to show me that. You know, if I'm mad at you, you have to show me that you're still affectionate to me. I'm the opposite. I have to cool off. It's hard for me to do that. If I'm angry, if you stress me the fuck out, I need to like breathe. I need to I can't.
But that's most men, I think.
It is, but I force myself. I do it for her. I've gone to sleep, you know, stressed out, holding her. I'm like, oh my God.
She's like, I hate this.
But I do it to prevent further fighting, and I do it for her. I force myself.
I mean, if it takes, for me, I see it this way. If it just takes somebody just to hug them and be like, you know what, I love you. What is it worth? Because you're going to be arguing for weeks on end, because I know I can go on forever, like, arguing with somebody if I wanted to.
No, our arguments are pretty explosive with loud verbal, you know, but it'll just last through the night. It doesn't go on for weeks, because after the argument, we have to come to an agreement. Okay, we squash this. Let's just drop this. We learn from it.
Wasted time, though. It's wasted time.
If
it's...
You move on.
That's why I'm saying it's easier just to give the hug and be like, you know what, I'm sorry. Because honestly, for myself, nothing is worth, like, if it's not, like, maybe somebody cheated. Okay, that's a different story.
Yes.
But other than that, I really don't care. You know, so it's just like, just say sorry. That's it. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Because I love you enough to say that, you know, it doesn't matter what's going on right now. I just want us to move forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably why I was in a marriage for 10 years. You know?
Wow, 10 years.
Yeah. Not anymore, though.
No, you were. I know. We're past tense. I get it. But that's a decade. So, yeah. No, I can imagine. Yeah, so reptiles, exotic dancing, both in the realm of everything involving exotics. I'm also an educator. I try to educate people, misconceptions about reptiles, you know, to the best of my knowledge. I'm not an expert. I don't know everything, but I know enough.
In fact, why don't you bring out your biggest snake that you have right now?
Okay.
All right, so Brian, introduce us to your friend here.
All right, so this is my biggest snake, biggest pet in my collection. This guy's actually 12 feet long, and surprisingly, because I struggled to get him out, he's a little calm, but he's adjusted well right now, so he's a little comfortable. He might move a little bit, but I'll readjust.
I think
him.
he likes the camera. He's posing. Huh?
He's breathing.
He's photogenic.
No, he's absorbing everything.
Christian.
He's just absorbing everything,
Yeah.
so he's just like kind of surprised
Right.
by what he's smelling all around him, different senses and whatever it is. So he's just curious.
Is this like, well, is this like the first time you actually bringing, like, as far as like a podcast or that bringing
Yes,
actual
this
pets
is
out?
the first time.
Okay,
So I remember on the Soft White Underbelly
Yeah.
interview, I presented Mark the idea for a possible follow-up, which I am going to do soon.
Yeah.
And it's not that he was opposed to the idea, but he's a brilliant man. He said, well, it would take the theme away from being an exotic dancer into something else, because what we're focused on is what you do for work. It would be kind of a distraction, he said. He goes, and by the way, his favorite animal is also snakes.
Oh, okay.
In fact, he has a book out about snakes.
Really?
Yes. So I thought that was interesting, but he's like, he gave me the explanation, not that he was opposed to it, because I thought it would be unique.
Yeah, it's different.
It was just too much of a distraction, though,
Right.
for what I am as an exotic dancer,
Yeah.
male stripper. So I thought, okay, but this right here, this is just I'm gonna throw it all out there and just merge in the two hustles, which are my reptiles and then my exotic dancing.
Well, yeah, because we met at a club actually.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
You wanna tell everybody how we met?
All right. So I have to give a shout out to Angela and her husband, who are the promoters of Club Metro in Downey, on how we met and how basically this all happened.
Right.
So the backstory with Angela and her husband was on Halloween of last year, I took this guy to the kids' Halloween fair. And of course, he drew a lot of attention.
Right.
Knowing that he's very friendly, and as you could see, he's always been calm. He's a well-behaved giant. He's a gentle giant. So I brought him out, and of course, all the attention was like, to him, and people were just tripping out, and like that. How appropriate of a theme to bring something that's pretty intimidating and scary.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I got him out, and then I remember, I think it was Angela that came up to me and her kid, and they were fascinated, and then her husband. And then I don't even know how the conversation started, but they presented me the idea because they came up with this idea, and the club owner was very open to it, and they thought this would be a pretty interesting idea just to try it out as a project.
Right.
So they told me about the club, Spanish Gothic club, and I thought, okay, that's pretty interesting. Downey, being that it's close by.
Right.
So I said, sure. I mean, I would love the idea because this is a chance to kind of go at that angle, which I want to do
Right.
too. I've done photo shoots with him by myself. I have a photographer friend, which is another thing I want to get into, and I'm doing photo shoots with models.
Okay.
So I just need the proper licensing for what do you call it? Liabilities, the paper forms, and that's it. Just to get that approved, and
Right.
I can do that. Photo shoots, and maybe hopefully one day music videos, because I think
Right.
rappers and things like that would like animals like this on them.
I thought about that when I see your snakes and stuff. I was like,
See, there it is, an idea. And you know what? Snakes would be a lot easier than any other exotic animal. I mean, there's people that are high on like Cardi B or whatever that probably would have wanted something like a lion or a tiger, but that's too dangerous of an
Right.
animal, honestly, compared to a snake. Because if the king of the jungle gets moody that day,
It's over.
yeah, it's over.
that's gonna
Solid.
kill everyone. That's a swift.
Right.
That's a real apex predator out there.
Yeah.
A snake is easier to manage and control. Even a giant like this
Right.
wouldn't be much of a handful, for it to be controlled in a shoot when you're doing a video or whatever.
How much does he weigh?
He's over 40 pounds. He's almost 50 pounds, and he's 12 feet long.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah. And so back to the club. So they presented me the idea, Angela and her husband, and they thought, just try it out and let's just let's see if you can bring this guy or maybe another snake, and what do you think, and let's just experiment. We think they'd be okay with it. And I said, yeah. They don't really get freaked out by the lights. It's just my dragon. I have a monitor lizard that he would get freaked out. He's very absorbent. These guys are really, and I trusted it, and I thought, okay, I knew what to do, and I thought I had a good feeling about it, and it was a great turnout the first night.
Really?
This was last year. So I met the manager of the club, and he's like, you think you can do this every month on our feature events? So I appeared the second time around, which was the end of the year. It was a little bit better than the first time around. I made tips, and I had my booth and area. I have another photographer friend, not the one that I did the shoot with, but he's been a support. Shout out to Christopher. Thank you for the help and everything. I always give credit where credit is due, so I figured I have to do that. It's important. So
definitely.
The second time around was a little bit better, and it was at the end of the year. Now, fast forward, Angela's birthday bash, it was very, very crowded.
Yeah, it was.
I met Chris there, and I was there that night. I had just done the thing to my tongue. My wife was mad at me, and we weren't talking, and I just didn't care. I had done a gig before. I did a house party. I made good money, and I don't know what it was about that night. I was just like glowing.
It was euphoric that night,
It was incredibly euphoric. It was something. I remember when we were talking, and it was just something, and I don't know. I was just so happy, and that energy fed off, and I know you felt that.
No, yeah, for sure. I think we
And I
clicked
was
like
just,
this, huh?
And I should have been worried and upset, but I stepped into the year that
On a positive note,
on a positive note, but I strongly believed in that night something. And to go further into detail about it, so I made good tips because it was crowded, and after I met Chris, nobody from the interview of Soft White interview has ever approached me, right? It had been out a few months, and before the closing of that night, people were starting to leave. A young man approached me, and as he was leaving, he looked at me. He saw me in my robe. I had this red robe. I appeared a little different, and just it caught me off guard. He was like, "Hey, aren't you the guy from Soft White Underbelly?" I go, "Yeah. Hey, it is me." He goes, "Oh my God, you're that dancer dude." And I go, "Yeah." And I had one of my snakes with me, so it was just a completely different atmosphere.
Right.
I didn't expect that. So I remember, because it was just such a glowing night. I don't know what it was, and I was so mellow and I was happy. And this guy was like, it turned out that he picked up a woman. So to tell you the truth, to be blunt with it, he had this lady waiting at a distance that he was going to take home. And this lady was older. She was, I don't want to offend, but maybe like a much older white woman. She was probably 50 and this kid was like 30 or something. She had came into town and stayed at a hotel. I don't know what the whole situation, but he was like, "Hey, can I ask you for some advice?" And I was like, "Okay, what happened?" He's like, "So I met this lady and she's over there. She's waiting for me. I'm gonna leave. Do you have any pointers or anything?" And I was just like, "Look, whatever happens, dude, just go with it. Don't be pressured. Don't have this pressure that something is gonna happen, or just." I told him this. I go, "Look, be grateful that a complete stranger is inviting you in the privacy of their domain. Embrace it. If nothing sexually explicit happens, so be it. You might have a long conversation with her. Go with the flow."
Right.
I go, just don't worry about it. Don't think like, this person is inviting you into this. You don't know what's going to happen. If it happens, okay. But if not, just be grateful that this woman is inviting you and in her presence and in her company, and go with that. Don't think too much about it. If it does happen, then okay, but if it doesn't, then just be thankful, because it's an experience. Embrace that moment and be thankful. That's all I told him. I go, just don't be pressured. It'll be all right.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Did you see him after that?
I never saw him again.
Probably kidnapped him.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Damn. So all my snakes, including this guy, have their own names, and a lot of people get freaked out at first, but when I give the explanation, they're like, "Oh, okay." So he's very intimidating because of his size and everything,
Right.
you know, and you think, oh my gosh. And the representation of the name is kind of a negative connotation, but there's a backstory to it. So his name is Lucifer. The reason why I named him Lucifer is because in the beginning, in the biblical time, Lucifer was the most beautiful angel before he turned and transitioned into the devil or
Right.
Satan,
Right.
which is the negative connotation. Lucifer in Latin means bringer of light. Luz, light.
Son of the morning.
Yes. See, because it's the brightest star. He was that beautiful that he emitted a beautiful light. So this guy in the sunlight actually reflects a rainbow.
Rainbow. You can
So,
actually see the rainbow.
Yes, it's called iridescence. And so in his scales, he has a special set of scales or skin that are called keratin. So the scales reflect against the light. No,
Rays.
iridophores. They're called iridophores. So iridophores are a special type of scale that reflect against the sunlight and that create that rainbow color. So that explains that. See, now he's on the move, but it's okay.
He's awake.
I'll adjust him right now. He's fine. He's not going anywhere.
For sure.
Yeah. So this is Lucifer, and I figured, it'd be interesting to bring out the biggest one. I have other ones. I had 14 snakes and I sold 2, so right now I'm down to 12 different types of snakes. But he's the biggest one, and I'm gonna introduce you to my other ones that are also different. So the reticulated python, really quick, is the longest species of snake in the world. Longest, not heaviest. A lot of people thought, oh, well, the anaconda is the biggest, which is
Right.
not. The anaconda is the heaviest snake. It's a heavy-bodied, bulky snake, heavier than these.
Is it illegal to have an anaconda?
No, they're legal.
Yeah?
You could have them.
Oh, that's crazy.
They can be domesticated like these if you have them as babies. And because these guys and anacondas in the wild are very dangerous because they'll strike and they'll bite and everything. And, there would be a lot to handle.
Have you had Lucifer since he was a baby, or?
No, I actually had him just over a year ago. The
Oh,
man unfortunately couldn't take care of him anymore because he was moving out of state, and where he was moving to, they were illegal.
Oh.
So he had to give him up, and he didn't want to. But he kind of interviewed me and
He wants to see who he's giving him
yes,
to.
and of course, knowing what I know, he's like, okay, he felt safe, and
Yeah.
I bought him, and I got him at a cheap price for what these are actually worth. I basically got him at a fraction of his value for his size. It was a bargain. I had to beg my wife, please, I have to have this snake. And I got him, and she was okay, we'll have him, but we have to visit him and see how friendly he is, supposedly.
Right.
I had to pass the test. So we went to visit the guy who had him and took him out, and he was this mellow. My stepkid liked him too, and he's like, oh my God, this is so cool. And yeah, and that was it. So I obtained him, and I got him, and I came up on him basically.
Yeah.
So longest species of snake, anaconda's the heaviest, and they're close in size too as far as length. An anaconda can reach 20 feet. They've been known to. But reticulated pythons can surpass 20 feet. They can reach up to 20. The biggest one recorded was 23 feet, which in the world record makes it the longest snake in the world, officially.
What makes the anaconda heavier? Are they wider, or are they just?
They're bulkier.
Yeah.
So their rib cage is wider.
Okay.
And it carries more fat and muscle.
Oh,
It's just a fatter, heavier snake all around. And it's interesting because how nature prepares animals to be such efficient hunters. They're heavy for a reason because they live in rivers. So they can get almost any type of animal, no matter how big. Imagine if it just lunges up, gets you, pulls you with all its weight. It's dragging you in the water.
Yeah.
That's hard to overcome.
Yeah.
It's like an anchor pulling you down. Another thing is anacondas have an incredibly long lung span. So if it would grab you and pull you, you would drown many times over before an anaconda. An anaconda can sit underwater for hours easily.
Wow.
It can hold its breath that long. And on top of that, to constrict you and squeeze you,
Yeah.
it's squeezing the life out of you, and it's like there's
And
no way.
you're being drowned and suffocated at the same time.
Yeah,
Basically.
so there's no escape. It's a perfect predator. Another thing that people didn't know about the anaconda, because of evolution, and they stay in the rivers and look up, they're the only snake that have their eyes not on the side of the head, but they merge upwards. A snake The anaconda has its eyes almost on top of its head.
Oh.
And the reason for that is because when it floats in the water, kind of like a crocodile or alligator,
That makes sense.
the eyes are above and
Yeah.
it stays and it can
So
stay
it's kind of
submerged
floating with just
with
viewing
its
it.
eyes looking up. Evolution.
Right.
So that's how its eyes are equipped, unlike other snakes. That's another
Wow.
fun fact right there for you. All right, this guy's starting to move around, and
Right,
I
let's
think
get
it's
get your other
time to
friends out.
Get
introduce the
friends
next
out.
one. Okay.
So introduce us to this friend of yours over here.
This is a girl, and this is also a python, but this is actually called a ball python, and she's pretty much full grown. So pythons are from all over the world, and they come in different sizes and girths. She's not obese. This is how she is. And the reason why these are called ball pythons is when you attack them and they feel threatened, they ball up like a ball, hiding their little head into the center to protect themselves. That's where ball python comes from. These are from Africa. The other guy is actually from Indonesia and Thailand, the reticulated python. So, yeah.
Why is the tail pointy?
Why is it what?
Why is the tail pointy instead of like?
Oh, she's just like pointing it out. It's just see, it curls, it moves. She's just trying to adjust herself. Yeah.
Just trying to get comfortable.
Yeah, but this is not an albino. A lot of people think right away a white albino. This is what's called a leucistic. Now, a leucistic is a more extreme version of an albino. Leucistic or leucism is whiter than albino, and they don't have the pink or red eyes like albinos do. Now, albinos come in all warm-blooded creatures or vertebrates. Even humans, there's actually human albinos. If you've ever seen one, they have pink eyes, white features. They lack the melatonin. They can't be out in the sun. So leucism is very, very rare. I don't think there's ever been a documented incident of a leucistic person, but in animals, they do come in leucism. I've seen a leucistic raven too.
Really?
So they can come in birds and not just reptiles. So leucism is the complete lack of melatonin, like albinos, except leucistic animals have either black, like pitch black eyes, or blue eyes. For example, a leucistic alligator has very dark black eyes, white as paper, but that animal would not survive in the wild because the white would stand out and they'll kill it.
Yeah.
You know, they're actually only kept in zoos. I think there's only a few documented leucistic alligators that are out there. These used to be worth a lot, but these are very easy to breed. And because they've been around the reptile hobby for so long, throughout many, many years, the prices have just dropped. I remember like 15 years ago, these were worth more than 10,000.
Wow.
And now you can get one of these for like $300-400.
Really?
Oh, sure.
That's how much the prices have dropped.
Wow.
Because they figured out how to mass produce this gene, and they've become more and more common. So yeah.
So why snakes? What got you interested in snakes, or has it always been a?
Well, snakes. Okay, so let me tell you. To me, the snake is the most enigmatic, mysterious animal in the world. It's always been my favorite animal. So now imagine this, guys. Out of all the predators and animals out there that are equipped with their weapons, claws, legs, fangs and tails or whatever, think of all the predators out there. If you guys have never seen or heard of a snake or serpent, imagine if I'm going to describe this animal to you. Okay, a snake. Imagine a creature that has absolutely no limbs, has to crawl on its stomach to get around, completely and utterly deaf. Out of reptiles, snakes are the only animals that don't have ear holes. They cannot, every single snake in the world is completely deaf. Another thing is, if you stare straight ahead and the corner of your eye, your peripheral vision, you have to turn to fixate and see what's at. A snake's regular vision is what you see in the corner of your eye, what you see in your peripheral. That's how poor their vision is. They see blunt objects.
So they seem almost helpless just by definition, or?
If you think about it, yes. Yeah. Imagine, crawls on its stomach, completely deaf, poor vision. Now that sounds like a pretty disabled and handicapped animal.
Right.
Yet, so many people around the world are terrified of snakes. There's a big fear of snakes. And it's like the common saying, people fear the unknown. People fear what's not known. You fear the unexpected. A lot of people have a lot of misconceptions and they don't know much about snakes. What makes snakes very terrifying is this animal that crawls. If you corner it, it stands its ground. And the one common thing is that a snake strike is faster than you can blink. You cannot outwit a snake. You can be the greatest martial artist, but a snake can get you faster than you can flinch.
Damn.
That's its number one weapon right there. It's bite. So there are two forms of killing with the snake: constricting or venom. And a lot of people confuse venom from poison. What's the difference? Poison is administered through the stomach. You ingest poison for it to cause its devastating effect. Venom is intravenously, injection, or i.e. by the fangs. Rattlesnakes, cobras, mambas, they all have venoms and different degrees of venom. Some are deadlier than others. Like the mamba can kill you in under an hour.
Right.
A rattlesnake, if you get bit, you can survive 2 days. You go to the hospital and you can get treated for that. The venom is not as potent. So there are different degrees and levels of venom from different snakes around the world. These guys come in all different sizes, all colors. There's so many different types out there. They're intriguing to me because I'm fascinated why people are so afraid of them. There's arachnophobia, which is a fear of spiders. Claustrophobia, fear of being kept in small spaces. The fear of snakes is called ophidiophobia. That is the fear of snakes, ophidiophobia. So that's the definition of fear of snakes. Now, the snake is just, it's fascinating to me because it's got so many disadvantages, but it's such a formidable animal still.
Right.
Because of its limitations. And a lot of people misunderstand them because even in the Bible, like the devil turned into a snake. They get such a bad rep.
Right.
People misunderstand and judge these animals. We need them in our ecosystem. Snakes are the predators that regulate the most pests in the world. All the rodents and mice, most snakes eat that.
Yeah.
Corn snakes are very useful to farmers because all the mice that eat up all the crops, they need corn snakes because they kill off those pests. Okay. And even there's a snake out there, which I'm going to bring to you in just a bit, that's known to eat other snakes. Even snakes are pests because they trespass. So nature needs a regulator of even them because there's snakes out there that eat other snakes. So snakes are important in the animal kingdom to help regulate and control the numbers of certain things because there's so many different types and there's so many different ones that have a special role around the world. And that's why. So I always tell and I always educate people, the importance of having them around, even though a lot of people fear them. But domesticated snakes like this, I've had people that have gotten over their fear of snakes being around. As a matter of fact, at the club one time, I don't think it was that night that we met, but there was a lady and her husband that went there and she was very afraid of snakes. And by the end of the night, she couldn't put one of my snakes down. She fell in love with, and I was teaching them about all the questions that they had about these animals and so yeah. So this is also another python, and I got one more different type of snake that I'm about to bring out.
Okay. All right. Okay, so now this is the last of your friends that you brought to me.
Yes. So this is a completely different animal, snake. This is not a python. This is something called a colubrid, and a colubrid is a long, slender snake. Corn snakes, king snakes are considered colubrids. A lot of colubrids, are constrictors like pythons. They squeeze. This animal is very unusual because it does not constrict or squeeze. This animal actually bulldozes and lunges at whatever it finds out in the wild, and it will crush it relentlessly. These are very brutal. And I know I'm describing this as a very brutal animal, but they're very, very gentle snakes. And this right here,
pass it to me?
Yes, this right here is actually a notorious and known snake eater.
I'll pet him.
So these animals, these snakes actually eat other snakes in the wild, especially rattlesnakes.
Nah, I'm good.
So this is a snake eater right here in the wild.
So it is not harmful.
It is not harmful, not venomous, and they're very docile. Unfortunately, because they're so friendly, you can actually go to in the wild and pick one up, and it'll act similarly. It might try to get away, but they're not as dangerous as rattlesnakes, yet they kill rattlesnakes. Now, a lot of people exposed these a lot back in the 70s and 80s, and they thought they were a pretty unique and cool snake to keep and have, and they were they didn't know much about their husbandry, so a lot of them were dying out. And now their numbers are very restricted, so they're federally protected snakes.
Oh, wow.
It's actually illegal to get them from their native states of Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. That's where they're from, the East
really?
Coast states. That's where they come from. These are American. And it's illegal to get one from the wild. It's a very serious crime if you do get one, because their numbers are so limited. You can only get them from a reputable breeder that breeds them and dedicates themselves. If you were to get one from out of state, you need a permit to get the one from out of state.
To be able to bring it back
to you, and you have to get it approved. So I got him from here in California, so
Okay.
that permit did not apply. If you get it within the state, it does not apply.
Okay.
So I got
So
him.
that means someone else had brought it over here, and then you just bought it off of them.
Yeah, the guy had been a breeder for many years, and he only sells within the state. So
Okay.
that's how I got this guy. The female was from another state, but the other guy obtained the permit and everything.
Right.
And then, being that he was in California, I don't know what drove him to give her up, because that's a pretty unique animal.
Right.
He sold her to me, so I have the female through him.
Okay.
So the female's from a breeder from out of state. So I have my pair here.
Does that kind of look similar to a
Mamba.
mamba?
Yes,
right?
they have a head like a mamba, and they look mean like one. So yeah.
Yeah, but they definitely ain't. Well, this one's not, at least.
Oh no.
It's pretty tame.
Yeah.
Just kind of flowing.
Right.
Mhm. This is also another snake that doesn't have the ability to unhinge its jaw like a python. So to give you an idea on how wide a snake can expand its jaw, it can expand its jaw 3 times the size of its own head. It would be the equivalent of you swallowing a basketball.
Damn.
So yeah, if you unhinge your jaw and you had a rubbery jaw, you could do that. These snakes can't do that. These snakes have a limited jaw movement because their jaw is not like cartilage, it's more solid like bone. So their bite force is harder than the average snake because it's solid. So they have to eat smaller animals because they can't unhinge it. And the fact that they just bulldoze and just like crush
Yeah.
with their bite. And you
Now
can
I'm gonna have to
imagine
look
how
that
hard
up
it
to
is.
see how they eat their prey. I'm curious.
Yes, it's always
Because I
it's-
always thought that it was like, you know how you always see them eating rats or mouses or anything like that.
Yeah.
But you're saying this one bulldozes.
Yeah, they lunge and they torpedo and they just crush whatever it is against. They're brutal when they're hungry, but yet they're very gentle and docile. Doesn't do anything. This guy's really active right now. Yeah, so that's just an example of some of my snakes in my collection. Obviously, I have others.
So how many snakes do you have altogether?
I have 12 currently.
12 currently?
I had 14 and I sold 2. I sold 2 males that I don't need. For ball pythons, I have 1 male, and I think that's enough for the few females that I have.
Right.
It would be enough just to have, well, what did you name? Pantera?
Oh yeah, Pantera, Drogon. So
Drogon,
my
there you go.
dragon, I was under the impression that it was a female, and it turned out to be a male. So I named it Pantera at first because Pantera has a feminine ending, Pantera, because it's like a black panther in a reptilian form. It's so sleek. And then come to find out it was a male. And it's funny because when I bought it from the breeder, I wanted a male, and those are very hard to sex when they're little. Snakes, believe it or not, you can actually sex at birth. And I don't know why, and I never understood why, but monitor lizards, you can't sex them at birth. Their organs they're not fully developed, their genitals, but a snake's is. So he just guessed, and then I wanted a male because they get bigger than females in the dragon. And then I was told by a supposed expert, I won't give his name out, but it was a female, and I believed that for so many months, and even more than a year, and now 2 years. And I was gonna breed it to a guy that had a male, and they knew a lot about these, and they're like, wait a minute, no, you have a male too, dude. by the structure and by the way they absorbed it.
Really?
They're like, no, that's a male. So I was like, oh wow, well, it looks like I got what I wanted originally.
Yeah.
Because I had the name picked out for him already. My favorite TV series is Game of Thrones, and one of the main characters, she had 3 dragons, and her biggest and baddest one was a black dragon named Drogon. So there's Drogon right there.
Yeah, and that is a big, really big.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. I wish I can bring him, but he would just get all over the place, and it would be way harder to handle.
It would have scared our engineer off.
Yeah,
for sure.
And he would run and scatter. But he's very tame. He doesn't bite either. It's just he runs and he'll go everywhere, and he's a handful.
For sure.
But he's tame too.
All right. Well, this has definitely been a interesting episode of Blocc Talk with Chris and Smoke. We're about to wrap this up, but I want to say thank you to our guest Brian, aka Santiago, for coming through and giving us a little bit of your story and telling us what you do and bringing your friends along with you. Do you have somewhere where people can find you online, on social media, anything like that?
So I have a brand new Instagram, and it was inspired by the soft white underbelly, because I got a big reaction out of it, and I wanted to start it up and emphasize and showcase more on the exotic dancing and also a little bit of the reptiles.
Right.
And it's excuse me, it's Santiago exotic dancer. Real simple, not complicated. No caps, no hashtag, nothing. It's just Santiago exotic dancer together. So yeah.
All right, for sure. Well, before we wrap this up, anything else you want to let the audience know?
Know that not much really. It's just that I hope in the future, because I've been an exotic dancer many years, and pretty soon, I am gonna step down. I want to take the reptile angle bigger into photo shoots, music videos, and then focus on that, because I can only keep up with that. Staying in shape, being in, I've put in my years with that.
Right.
And I still have more in me to continue on, but that's
this is the direction you want to go. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, dancing, entertainment, I'm very familiar with, and I mentioned it briefly on Soft White Underbelly, but I've appeared on live radio. I came out on Power 106 a few years ago. I have that. I have a reel, 92.3. I also appeared on that. I met Big Boy. I did a video with him. Okay. So I have that under my belt. I met Vivica Fox for her premiere show, which I'm very blessed to be. And that's all thanks to the exotic dancing angle. Yeah. And it's how you have your aura and how you network with certain people.
Yeah, it's all about networking. Definitely.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think what else. But those are the 3 standouts that I have under my belt, credited to the exotic dancing, and I'm just very humbly thankful for.
For sure. Oh man, I wish you the best of luck, man. This was definitely, like I said, it was definitely something different for us.
For sure.
Yes.
Yeah, but it was definitely. It was.
Thank you
good,
guys so much.
I wish
for
you the best
me.
on everything that you got coming, ahead of you. And with that being said, this is Blocc Talk with Chris and Smoke. I'm Smoke. This is Chris. We out.